It's 2, Mike.
Oh crap.
It's 2 o'clock, buddy.
Shit.
Need a new watch.
I need new balls.
Alright, we are back. You've been asking for it for quite some time, and we've been dragging our feet with the holidays on the D150 project. So here we are. We're going to pull it into the shop today, and we're going to get to what you have been requesting, and that is the Hemi swap. Stick around. This poor thing's been sitting out in the weather for quite some time. Sorry, Mike. Bed's full of water.
My poor baby. Bed's full of water.
Yeah, that is why these trucks tend to rust out like they do to the front of the cab. They hold water. They don't have any factory drain holes. So you'll see this standing water really just leads to corrosion. So, sorry, Mike.
Well, I mean, shit. You could have parked it the other way, but it's all right. We're gonna fix that.
You could have parked it the other way too.
Let's just hope she starts. Come on.
Come on, baby.
I heard something. Yeah! Close this hood. Alright. Uh-oh, don't hit that Jeep. Look at that water. Oh, she's peeing on herself.
All right. So we got the truck back into the shop. And what we're going to do is a brief overview. We know you've seen the truck before, but just in case it's been a while and you don't remember, we're going to just kind of have a high-level overview. So it is a 1988 D150, and it has the factory 318 cubic inch small block V8. Made it to an automatic transmission. I believe it's a 46RH, and it's a perfect swap candidate. So we could have reuse the automatic transmission in this truck with the new Hemi, but because our Jeep donor had a 5-speed automatic, which is very convenient for a swap, we elected to do that. So this engine and transmission is coming out today. We're going to prep the engine bay, and we're going to cover what you do need, what you don't need, and really get your sights set on this project on how easy it is to get done. So let's dive right into it. First, obviously the engine and transmission can come out, but let's look at some of the auxiliary components around here. We have the air conditioning system, so you have your blower motor, you have your AC hoses that come over to your compressor, over to your condenser right here. What we're actually going to do is we're going to keep this condenser. We're going to keep the factory D150 AC condenser. We're going to make our new hoses, and we're going to rebarb this upper condenser fitting. We're going to try to reuse the dryer here for the AC system. Sometimes with these gaskets in here, it doesn't seal well, so we may replace the dryer, but the location will not change. And then we're going to make a new hose for both the high and the low side, and it's going to reroute down along the bottom of the radiator to where the new Hemi compressor is. So you can get rid of the compressor. You can go ahead and cut this hose and cut this hose, get that out of the way. What you also notice is down here a lot of these connectors on the firewall, well, say firewall and inner fender, these go to the electronics on the 318. We won't need most of these. In here, you're going to have this, which is the blower motor resistor. You can leave that connected. You can disconnect the ones in here that go to the engine, and you should be pretty dang good. On that side, one of these, I believe it is this one here in the front, is your fuel pump relay. So we're going to cheat a little bit, and instead of us running a wire along the frame rail all the way to the electronic fuel pump in the tank, what we're going to do is we're going to remove this relay, and the feed wire that actually goes to the fuel pump, we're going to splice it into our new quick Hemi harness, which already has a fuel pump relay. We're just going to reuse that factory wire that's already neatly ran along the frame rail. It's going to save us some time, and it's going to really prevent us from having to run an additional wire that could be unsightly. So we're going to reuse the fuel pump relay feed wire. This cruise control mechanism is going to come out. As you can see, it's got a speedometer cable coming from the original transmission, going into the cruise control box, and then going back out to the gauge. We now have digital gauges from a 91 model. So we're going to take this cable out, we're going to take this vacuum diaphragm out, which operates the cruise control. That's all going to come out. This upper air intake box, the plenum that comes from beneath the battery tray, all this will be removed. The intake will be removed. We'll have our ignition coil removed off the firewall. And that is pretty much it. And we can also opt to remove the canister, the charcoal canister down there in the fender well. You see it, that black canister.
Right there.
So that'll be removed as well. We are going to reuse the radiator. So luckily, when we bought this truck, they had just replaced the radiator. So that's a brand new radiator. We're going to reuse that guy. There's no need to get rid of a perfectly good radiator.
Nice.
Right? So again, pull this out, take the cruise control out, take this relay out, take the ignition coil off the firewall, get rid of it. All of these vacuum lines, you can pull those off to the side, and then you can disconnect all these plugs right here on the inner fender. Go ahead and disconnect those. We'll get this guy out, and then we will go from there.
All right. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon. Time to get to work.
It's 2, Mike.
Oh, crap.
It's 2 o'clock, buddy.
Shit.
Need a new watch.
I need a new boss.
Oh. So we got the truck up in the air, and we went ahead and disassembled as much as we could from the bottom. We found the best way to get the engine mount bolts out is to get the actual bushing mount, which is down here in the bottom.
Let's see.
You see the tip of my finger, it's actually right there. So you take that nut out right there. You have the stud for the actual rubber isolator, the motor mount on both sides. Just pull those out. Then we went to the back to the transmission, disconnected the speedometer cable, the shifter linkage, cut the exhaust off. We know we won't be using this Y pipe or anything, just to make it easier and get it out. We cut that off. We cut the EGR tube off on this side, which ran down and connected to the catalytic converter.
That's the EGR tube.
That's the EGR tube. And we went ahead and cut the exhaust behind the catalytic converter just to get everything out of the way. The last thing we did was we removed the cross bolts on the transmission cross member. And then the lower bolts here, just going to make it easier. So what's going to happen now is we're going to drop the engine down on it, the car down on its wheels, and we'll put our transmission floor jack under the trans, jack it up just a little to get it out of the saddle right here for the trans mount, and then we're going to lift up on the whole engine, pull forward enough to where this is forward about 8 inches so it'll clear, and then we'll just yank the entire engine and trans out together and pull it straight out from the top.
Yep, and you pulled the starter off too.
Yeah, we did pull the starter off too.
I think that's
really not
right
totally
here.
necessary, but yeah, it was right here. Not totally necessary, but we went ahead and did it anyway. Let's get it out the way.
Makes it easy. And did you say we could use that starter even if we wanted to?
Yeah, so that starter it's pretty big. You see it down there, it's pretty big. I cut it because we're not going to use this same connector on the Hemi starter. We're actually probably going to reuse the starter wire that's on the donor vehicle, but you'll see that this is pretty tall, okay? But it's still not that bad. It's not... People do use these on Hemi swaps. I don't want to give the wrong impression. So we could reuse this. The starter was good. We could clean it up and reuse it on a Hemi swap. But since our donor vehicle actually has a starter, it works well, we're going to keep that all the same, Gen 3. This, if we didn't have, the whole transmission and starter, I would have kept this starter and used it, actually. That's one less piece that you have to buy, But I'm just not going to do that. We won't do that this go-round. We have the perfect starter. This is all together on the Hemi powertrain. So we'll clean this up and put it to the side.
So that actually, the bolt pattern for this starter actually bolts up to the new Hemis too?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So it does. So especially the trucks, I don't think it's the same for the NAG one on the cars. I think those are a little different. But when you use an old school transmission on these engines, most people, they'll choose, if they have a small enough starter, to reuse it. But this should also work on that engine and transmission, because that's the 545 RFE. Now NAG one, it's not the same. It's a little bit different. So you wouldn't use this on a NAG one, an NAG one.
All right, let's get this engine and tranny out of here then.
Let's do it.
Hey guys, Mike here. So we came back another night, which was very cold, to pull the engine and transmission assembly out. We had to wait for a load leveler to use that to attach to the engine hoist, and the load lever attaches to the engine at we had at 4 different spots, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. But you can see a closer look here, and also one that you can get at AutoZone or any auto parts store similar to this here. But it helped us out extremely because you can actually angle the assembly the entire time at different angles by rotating that handle. And what we did was we used that and jacked up the back where the transmission was to get it over that bracket that Blake was talking about. And everything worked out pretty well. You can see we had the fan still attached to the engine. It was seized on there, so we couldn't get it out. So that made it a little bit tighter for us, but with the load lever, it was able to kind of get it out with fairly good ease. But yep, here's Blake again.
All right, so we got the 318 engine and transmission out of a D150 tonight.
There it is.
There it is, side by side with the new powertrain. She was definitely full of surprises. When we yanked it out, the trans fluid was disgusting. It looked darker than used motor oil, really brown. Good thing we're not using that transmission. That would have been an additional cost to us. We would have had to have had it rebuilt. I mean, it was very obvious. Everything came out pretty smoothly. We chose to pull engine and trans out as one piece because the transmission cross member bracket is a little bit hard to get to some of the bolts to get the whole thing out. With the use of a trans jack on the bottom underneath supporting it and the engine hoist up front, we were able to lift up and roll everything forward and snake it out. We weren't the most gentle with it, but I mean, it's our rusty little low buck Hemi truck, and it likes character, so we weren't too overly concerned about scratch and paint or anything like that. So come on, Mike, let's take a look at this engine compartment.
Let's check it out.
A little dirt, little leaves, and some old wires. So as you can see, what we really did is, it's pretty easy, it's pretty straightforward. You have your bulkhead wiring here on the main engine harness from the D150, as well as the one right here. We just unplugged them. We left all the TBI wiring, everything on top of the engine. We didn't take the time to remove all that because it's not necessary. You just simply remove these bulkhead fittings. From underneath, you get your single bolts on each side for the engine mounts, and then you get the transmission crossmember bolts. Cut your hoses. We cut it the fuel feed and return lines, as well as the vacuum lines. We knew we wouldn't be using those, so it was pretty straightforward getting everything out. One thing we're going to have to do with the new Hemi is we're going to retain this heater valve for the heater. So it operates off of vacuum. It's going to be the same way with the Hemi. This was right here on the firewall on the heater core. Here's the other one. We won't reuse this hose, and we will reuse this section, but we won't reuse this one because both of your heater hoses are on the back of the Hemi, as you can see on the intake manifold over here. So let's walk right here and show right here. So these are your two heater hoses for the Gen 3 Hemi. They go underneath. There's actual tubing, hard piping, that goes under the intake manifold to the water pump at the front. So what we'll actually have is we have some part numbers, and we have a hose substitute that comes over with a 90-degree bend over, and then it 90s this way to connect directly at the heater core for the discharge, and then the outlet will 90 up and then use the heater valve and then 90 back into the heater core on the firewall. That's it. You have some wires in here that, again, I said we're going to reuse. The air conditioning wiring we're going to reuse as well. The AC wire is going to go down and activate the factory Hemi compressor, and then we'll make up the hoses to come to the condenser, and the dryer we're probably going to replace just because it looks old, not that it's not capable, and we'll have functioning AC on the low up. So everything's looking good so far, Mike. I'm happy with it. We have some cleaning to do, and we're going to look at this brake booster for clearance right before we drop it in. But other than that, she's about ready to go together.
Awesome. Can't wait. Yep.
It's looking good, man.
We're getting close. Getting close, guys. Alright, let's wrap it up for the night. It's probably like, what, 10:30 right now? And
It's getting there.
it's like 32 degrees outside right now, so we're freezing our butts off. But we're doing it for a good cause.
That's right. It's been easy so far, you know, and we've done a couple before, but doing it again is it's been a while. It's been a couple years, so it's always good to tackle it again, once again.
Alright, next video should be us putting the new engine in the Hemi and getting it fitted up, so stay tuned, guys.
Please like and subscribe. But Mom, Hemi, cat.